A very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. My name is Aishwarya Kapoor and here are the headlines. US, UK and France ask UN Security Council to blacklist Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar, ask for an arms embargo, travel ban and asset freeze. India demands immediate return of Air Force pilot captured by Pakistan, strongly objects to Islamabad's vulgar display of injured personnel in violation of international humanitarian laws and Geneva Convention. Let the country speak in one voice, says Finance Minister Arun Jaitly, tells opposition parties Pakistan is using the ill-advised statement alleging politicization of current situation to strengthen its claims. IT department conducts sensitive searches in Kashmir Valley and New Delhi, unearths credible evidence of financial transactions used for terror funding. And the nation observes National Science Day today. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu to be the chief guest at Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Summit and Awards on Innovation in Governance 2019. Prime Minister Modi to confer Shanti Swaroop Bhatnagar Prizes for Science and Technology. The top story this morning, India says that it expects the immediate and safe return of the Indian Air Force pilot that was captured by Pakistan after an air combat that marked the worst escalation between the two neighbors in decades. New Delhi summoned the Pakistan envoy and launched a strong protest over what it called was an unprovoked act of aggression by Pakistan, saying that its jets had targeted military installation in India a day after Indian fighter jets crossed the line of control and carried out a strike at a major terror camp. In various videos circulated by Pakistani accounts, the pilot was seen as blindfolded and wounded, his arms tied behind his back, being interrogated. Now, India said it strongly objects to Pakistan's vulgar display of an injured personnel of the Indian Air Force in violation of all norms of international humanitarian laws and the Geneva Convention. It was made clear that Pakistan would be well advised to ensure that no harm comes to the Indian defence personnel in its custody. Earlier, the government had said that the pilot was missing in action after shooting down a Pakistani aircraft that was targeting Indian military installations. The Pakistani F-16 aircraft shot down by an Air Force MiG-21 Bison crashed on Pakistani territory in the Lamb Valley area. Well, tensions between India and Pakistan escalated further on Wednesday. Pakistan tried to enter the Indian airspace early in the day in response to the airstrikes carried out by the Indian Air Force in Balakot against a terror group, Jaish-e-Mohammed. India responded effectively to Pakistan and shot down a Pakistani Air Force F-16 fighter jet, foiling its attempt to target Indian military installations. But during the encounter, the Indian Air Force lost a MiG-21 and the pilot was reported missing in action. Now, Pakistan claims that the Indian pilot is in its custody.
India had informed about counter-terrorism action it took yesterday against a terrorist training camp of Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pakistan, based on credible evidence that Jaish-e-Mohammed intended to launch more attacks. Against this counter-terrorism action, Pakistan has responded this morning by using its Air Force to target military installations on the Indian side. Due to our high state of readiness and alertness, Pakistan's attempts were foiled successfully. The Pakistan Air Force was detected and the Indian Air Force responded instantly. In that aerial engagement, one Pakistan Air Force fighter aircraft was shot down by a MiG-21 Bison of the Indian Air Force. The Pakistani aircraft was seen by ground forces falling from the sky on the Pakistan side. In this engagement, we have unfortunately lost one MiG-21, the pilot is missing in action. Pakistan has claimed that he is in their custody. We are ascertaining the facts.
And in the wake of Pakistani jets violating the Indian airspace, the top security and intelligence officials hurtled into a meeting at the Prime Minister's office. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was briefed about the current security situation, and among those present were National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and the chiefs of the Indian Army, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy. All right, let us look into more details into really what are the options that India has right now. We are joined in by Mr. Dilip Sinha, who is a former ambassador. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us here on Rajya Sabha television. Ambassador, India has demanded immediate and safe return of the Indian Air Force's pilot that has been captured by Pakistan. India has also said that it strongly objects to Pakistan's vulgar display of the injured personnel in violation of all norms of international humanitarian laws as well as Geneva Convention. But practically, what really are the options that India has?
This pilot is a regular military officer, an officer of the Air Force. He was in uniform. So he's protected under the Geneva Conventions. There are 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949. The 3rd convention deals with prisoners of war. And the convention lays down that all the 4 conventions lay down the responsibilities of soldiers in uniform, how they are supposed to behave, and also lays down their rights. And the rights, as I said, are laid down in the POW's convention of the 3rd convention, in which it says that the custody state, in this case Pakistan, is responsible for his welfare. It lays down a set of rights that the soldier has, which includes the right to no torture against him, the right to decent behavior. And these 4 conventions are what are called international humanitarian law, because these were the first laws that were framed in the laws of war to ensure that soldiers behave with a certain degree of responsibility. And when soldiers are taken into custody, they become prisoners of war, then they are treated humanely.
Ambassador, but looking
now,
at... Yeah, please continue.
The convention also lays down that any impartial humanitarian organization such as the... as I said, any impartial humanitarian organization like the International Committee of the Red Cross can be asked to intervene and ensure that the POW is treated humanely. So India can approach one of these organizations and request it to ensure that Pakistan follows the convention, to which Pakistan is a party, as is India.
And Ambassador, how do you look at Pakistani Prime Minister's offer of talks? Because yesterday we heard Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan making that statement that there is no point in escalating and we should sit down for talks. How do you look at that offer?
Well, India's action was specifically against terrorist camps. This is a right that India has under international law, the right to preemptive strike in self-defense that comes from Article 51 of the UN Charter. That is a well-recognized right because we feared and we had intelligence reports that these terrorist organizations were planning to attack India. So we have that specific right under international law. Plus, in the ongoing war on terror, every country is responsible for ensuring that its territory is not used for terrorist actions. There's no terrorist financing. Now, in all this, Pakistan has certain responsibilities. So Pakistan is obliged to take action under international law and under the Security Council resolutions against these camps. So before Pakistan offers talks, it must take action because we face a problem of terrorism emanating from Pakistan. And it is important for Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, to live up to his word and live up to the responsibilities of his country to take action against terrorist camps. Now, what Pakistan did yesterday was to violate Indian airspace. Now, even Pakistan does not accuse India of harboring terrorists. So what were they targeting in India?
Yes.
only military installations, civil installations, which is completely different from the kind of action that we were taking. So in that sense, it is Pakistan that is seeking to escalate the situation in order to gain whatever advantage it wishes to take, perhaps to help the terrorist organizations.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us this morning and sharing your perspective on that entire story. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, the US, Britain and France have proposed that the United Nations Security Council blacklist Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar. They also said that the attack on a CRPF convoy in Kashmir was done by Jaish-e-Mohammed. These nations have asked the 15-member Security Council Sanctions Committee to subject Masood Azhar to an arms embargo, global travel ban and asset freeze. The Security Council condemned the 14th of February attack in a statement last week. China's UN mission did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the new proposal. Meanwhile, the United States has asked Pakistan to abide by its Security Council commitments to deny terrorists safe havens and not provide them any funds. Now, this US statement came after India on Wednesday handed over to Pakistan a dossier on specific details of involvement of the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pulwama terror attack on CRPF, as also the presence of camps of the UN-prescribed terror outfit in that country. The US State Department spokesperson said that the United States has called on India and Pakistan to cease all cross-border military activity and for a return to stability. Meanwhile, UK has urged India and Pakistan to exercise restraint to avoid further escalation. Meanwhile, back home, Finance Minister Arun Jaitly on Wednesday appealed to the opposition parties to introspect their statement on blatant politicization of the sacrifices of the Indian Armed Forces. In a series of tweets, he said that it is being used by Pakistan to bolster their case. Jaitly hit out at the opposition, saying that why is it alleging that the government is politicizing the anti-terror operation when the whole nation is speaking in one voice. He reiterated that the Balakot operation was India's anti-terror preemptive strike to defend its sovereignty. All right, our colleague Akhilesh Suman is now joining us for more on that story. Akhilesh, as far as activities in India are concerned, post the tragedy of one of our pilots being taken by Pakistan, what all options that India has, we'd like to know from you.
India has already given, demarche to Pakistan and also said that dossier that has been given about presence of Jaish-e-Mohammed and involvement of Jaish-e-Mohammed in Pulwama attack. So India has now put pressure on Pakistan to act against Jaish-e-Mohammed. And as far as our wing commander is concerned, who is in captivity of Pakistan, he is a serving officer, and that is why India has told them to release immediately. So it is a well-known norm that if a serving commander is captured during some skirmishes, during some operation, Pakistan has to return. It is the Geneva Conference and Geneva Convention, and India has put pressure on Pakistan to do the same. So I think it is the question of how Pakistan responds, but the way the whole world is, working against Pakistan, the whole world is speaking against Pakistan, that India's, strike on Jaish-e-Mohammed, place in Pakistan, it was a preemptive strike and it was act against terror. So in that way, Pakistan is under pressure. And today, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj is going to Abu Dhabi, where Organization of Islamic Cooperation Foreign Minister Conference is there. And there Sushma Swaraj is also going to speak against Pakistan's involvement in terrorism. And India has to put a point that, India attacked a terror camp. Pakistan is trying to attack military base. So it is Pakistan that is trying to, escalate the tension. Pakistan is trying to escalate a war-like situation. So if someone is acting against terror, you cannot, reply by military means and by targeting the military.
Yes.
So the ball is in the court of Pakistan, and the way whole world is coming with India, the whole world is trying to put pressure against Pakistan. You have seen that how US, how UK, how French, even Russians have told, and I think that in coming days now from March 1, France is going to have the presidency. And
All
France
right.
is going to have presidency of United Nations Security Council, and a proposal is going to be moved against, Jaitly Muhammad. So Pakistan is under tremendous pressure.
Right.
And just
Of
to
course,
release
Pakistan
that
is
pressure,
under
Pakistan
tremendous
is
pressure,
trying
but the
to
point
bargain
is
with India
that
with the offer of talk.
That
But
even
it is
as the
not-
government really is planning the next step, of course, the plight of the Indian Air Force pilot is going to be the key factor that has to be factored in before taking any action. You stay with us, Akhilesh, you stay with us. We'll just come back to you. Meanwhile, all opposition parties have unanimously condemned the dastardly Pulwama attack by Pakistan-sponsored terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed. In the meeting, the opposition parties lauded the Indian Air Force action against the terror camp of Jaish-e-Mohammed. In a joint statement issued after a meeting of 21 opposition parties, all the parties paid homage to the martyrs and expressed solidarity with the armed forces. The leaders also expressed deep concern over the well-being of an Indian pilot in Pakistan custody. The opposition parties also said that the national security must transcend narrow political considerations. The Samajwadi Party did not attend the meeting. National Conference leader Omar Abdullah also skipped the meeting.
Meeting of leaders of 21 political parties condemned the dastardly Pulwama terror attack by Pakistan-sponsored terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed on 14th February 2019. The meeting paid homage to our martyrs and expressed solidarity with our armed forces in crushing the menace of terrorism. The meeting lauded the action taken by the Indian Air Force against the terrorist camp on 26 February 2019 and praised our armed forces for their valor and their bravery.
All right, so let's go back to Akhilesh Suman, who is joining us live from New Delhi. Akhilesh, after the all-party meeting, we heard that statement by Mr. Rahul Gandhi, where, he said that all the opposition parties, the entire country is standing with the armed forces. But at the same time, he also spoke of, what he called was the blatant politicization of the sacrifices of the Indian armed forces. And, obviously that puts a big question mark over the statement really made by the opposition parties saying that they stand with the government, but at the same time they talk of blatant politicization. And of course, Arun Jaitly has, appealed to all the opposition parties to introspect on their statement.
You're right. It was really a situation, very difficult situation for government of India yesterday when opposition parties came out and spoke on the issue of politicization of martyrs. But that it was not expected from the opposition parties because the type of bonhomie and the type of unity the opposition parties and the government had shown after Pulwama and also after the action taken against Jaish-e-Mohammed, terrorist camp in Pakistan. Everyone was thinking that there is a unity among political parties in India. But this statement has again put a question mark on whether this unity is going to sustain, because political parties also try to score their own point in some way or other. But the way Pakistan utilized the political differences that had existed yesterday after the statement of 21 opposition parties, this is not a good situation. And I was hearing that they are trying to show the way Imran Khan and other members of Pakistani establishment were trying to show that the whole act against terror of India was targeted towards elections. So India should not give such type of message in Pakistan that there is a political bickering and there is a political differences, because you are fighting with an enemy, and this enemy is not just straight jacketed. You are fighting with the enemy in different ways. They target you in different ways, terrorist ways, then they target military. So it's an all-out war all the time, almost all the time with Pakistan, either diplomatically or physically on the ground. So I think everyone expects that opposition parties and the treasury benches the government, everyone will speak in one voice,
Yes.
so that the menace of terrorism can be countered from Indian soil, and also the diplomatic achievement that we have got after our attack on terror camps in Pakistan, it's so
Yes.
sustained. So I think after, yesterday Prakash Javadekar made a statement and Arun Jaitely also appealed. We hope that good senses will prevail because it is very necessary the type of fight we are going with the against the terrorist and against the sponsor of terrorists, that is Pakistan.
Yes.
It is going to be a difficult war.
Absolutely.
And we will see that what happens in OIC, but we are having a leverage point in the world at this time, and we should sustain, all political parties should sustain and should cooperate with the armed forces and with the sense the government is trying to fight war against terror.
Absolutely.
Shreya?
Thank you so much, Akhilesh, for all those updates there. And at a time when our Indian Air Force's pilot has been captured, the least that we expected was a show of strength, a show of unity by all the political parties. Let's get to some other news now. The Income Tax Department conducted a sensitive search on Wednesday that covered the head of a prominent organization in connection with the alleged terror financing and anti-national activities. 4 premises in the Kashmir Valley and 3 in the national capital were searched. IT department has not named any organization or persons involved. In a statement, the IT department said that the search action has yielded credible evidence of large-scale undisclosed financial transactions carried out in the business of acquiring hotels, etc. And without providing specific details, the IT department said that it unearthed clinching evidence of huge unaccounted expenditure having been incurred in cash on the reconstruction and remodeling of the residential premises presently being used by the tax evaders' family. In the search action, 3 hard disks have also been seized. The analysis of the information contained in those disks is likely to yield even more substantial evidence against the tax evader and his associate. Now, this action is part of a concerted drive to trace illegal sources of funding that has financed the separatist elements and their activities in the Kashmir Valley. And amidst the standoff between India and Pakistan, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will leave for Abu Dhabi today to take part in plenary session of OIC Summit. Now, this is the first OIC Summit in which India has been invited as a special guest for the plenary of Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Sushma Swaraj will address the plenary on Friday in the presence of 57 foreign ministers of Islamic majority nations. Pakistan is also one of the founder members of the grouping and has threatened to boycott the plenary if Sushma Swaraj is there. Meanwhile, Delhi, Mumbai and many other cities have been put on high alert. A red alert was sounded for the entire Delhi metro network on Wednesday by the DMRC in view of the heightened tensions between India and Pakistan. The red alert was imposed on the entire DMRC network from 6 p.m. onwards. The move came in the wake of escalating tensions between India and Pakistan. Indian Railways also issued a security alert across its network. In view of the escalating tensions, security has also been beefed up on board all the trains operating in border areas and on railway premises. And amid growing tensions, Maharashtra's Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis has proposed to cut short the budget session of Maharashtra legislature. Army personnel have also been deployed at sensitive locations in Mumbai city along with the local police. Along with the central paramilitary forces, army jawans are guarding key railway stations, airports, area outside the Western Naval Command headquarters and various defence establishments in Mumbai and neighbouring towns. The nation is observing National Science Day today. The day is celebrated this day each year to mark the discovery of the Raman effect by Indian physicist Sir C.V. Raman on 28th of February 1928. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will be the chief guest at Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Summit and Awards on Innovation in Governance 2019 at Pravasi Bharatiya Kendra. On the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also confer Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar prizes for science and technology. The Prime Minister will confer prizes for 2016, 2017 and 2018 to the awardees. He will also address the gathering. Sports news now. India has been defeated by Australia by 7 wickets in the second and the final T20 of the two-match series at Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru. Chasing a target of 191 runs, Australia clinched the victory with 2 balls to spare and 7 wickets in hand. Opener Darcy Short scored 40 runs, while Glenn Maxwell's quick-fire innings of unbeaten 113 runs powered Australia to claim the victory. For India, Vijay Shankar picked up 2 wickets. And earlier batting first, the men in blue scored 190 runs for the loss of 4 wickets in their stipulated 20 overs. Opener KL Rahul gave a good start with his knock of 47 runs, and skipper Virat Kohli also played an unbeaten knock of 72 runs, while MS Dhoni contributed with 40 runs. Both Kohli and Dhoni had a 100-run stand for the 4th wicket. Dhoni also became the first Indian to notch 356s across all formats of international cricket. His innings included 3 sixes and 3 fours. And in more sports news, Indian shooters Saurabh Chaudhary and Manu Bhaker claimed gold in the 10 meters air pistol mixed team event at the ISSF World Cup in New Delhi at the concluding day of the competition. Saurabh and Manu shot a total of 483.5 points to finish on the top of the podium. Both had entered the final after equaling the qualification world record. The Chinese pair of Ranxing Jiang and Bowen Zhang won silver, while South Korea claimed the bronze medal. India jointly topped the medal standing with Hungary in this edition of the Shooting World Cup, claiming 3 gold medals, while China stood third with 10 medals, including 1 gold. The tournament offered 14 quota places for the 2020 Tokyo Games, but India managed to secure only 1 Olympic quota. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Breakfast News. Thanks for watching.